Well, hello. I am here to just talk a little bit about Erik Erikson and his psychosocial development theory and how kind of affects us today. So Erik Erikson, just a little bio about him. He was born in Frankfurt, Germany, June 15th, 1902. He passed away just about a month before his 92nd birthday, May 12th, 1994. He had a very interesting life. I'll tell a little bit about that. His wife's name was Joan Serson. She was a Canadian psychologist who he came to know and meet in his early 30s. They wound up having 4 children, and one of the interesting things about Erikson is the number of name changes that he had in his lifetime. He had name changes that led to questions of identity, which in time, of course, led to part of his theory development. So here's a picture of him with 2 of his half-sisters, Ruth and Ellen. He was born Erik Salomonsson, and his mother, was the wife of a man for one day, basically, and then the man fled because he had complications with the law. And during that time, his mother moved back in with her folks, and she became pregnant due to an extramarital affair with a different man. But she still named her son Salomonsson after the man she had married. Well, she became widowed a short time later, and so she was eventually, by the time Erik was 3, she married Theodore Homburger, who was the pediatrician. So he became Erik Homburger, and throughout Erik Erikson's life, he, was believing these different stories. For a very long time, he believed that Homburger was his biological father. And it wasn't until later that he finally became Erik Erikson, a name that he chose himself in 1933 when they immigrated to the US, he and his wife. So they had their 4 children, as I mentioned, and immigrated. So, stages of development. Erikson was the first to propose that identity development occurred over a lifetime. There are theories that talk about how we only develop in the first few years of life, and then we've basically become the person we're going to be. And what Erikson proposed was that, we really develop as who we are and in our identity over a lifetime, not just in the first few years of life. So his theory, his psychosocial stage theory, the first step being trust versus mistrust. And this is the time from birth to about 1 year when an infant, because of their utter dependence, they learn to trust and feel safe and secure in the world, their caregivers, or if they are rejected and they have caregivers who are inconsistent or emotionally unavailable, then they will develop feelings of mistrust. And Erikson concludes that, at each of these stages that he has in his psychosocial development theory, that you need to find a balance, because you don't want to be so trusting that you're completely naive, and you don't want to be so mistrusting that you are unable to, develop further. So the second stage being autonomy versus shame and doubt. And in this second stage, it's younger children who are learning to control their bodily functions. Toilet training is a big part of this process in his view. And they get a sense of feeling of control, a sense of independence. And children who successfully complete the stage, they feel secure and confident, while those who don't are left with a sense of inadequacy, and they might doubt themselves a lot. Initiative versus guilt is the third stage, and it's during the preschool years that children who are successful at this stage begin to feel capable and able to lead, and those who fail to develop skills at this level are left with a sense of self-doubt and a lack of initiative. The fourth stage being industry versus inferiority, and these are the early school years that people attribute numbers to about 5 to 11 years, but Erikson didn't always attribute numbers to the different stages because of how it can differ for different individuals. And at this stage, children who are encouraged and commended by parents and teachers, they start to feel confident and they believe in themselves and in their skills. Whereas those who receive little encouragement from teachers and parents and peers, they will begin to doubt their abilities to be successful. So identity versus identity confusion is stage 5. Now, as I said from the bio, Erikson dealt with a lot of identity versus identity confusion. So he spends a lot of time on his theory talking about adolescence and the different things that people can encounter at this stage in life. He talked about how at this stage of identity versus identity confusion, that those who receive proper encouragement, that they will emerge from this stage feeling a strong sense of self and independence and control, and those who remain unsure about beliefs and desires, they'll feel insecure and confused about themselves and confused also of their future. Stage 6 is intimacy versus isolation, and this is the period in early adulthood when people are starting to explore personal relationships. This is the time when people are, developing close committed relationships and marriage and long-term commitments. And those who are not secure in this stage will have a poor sense of self and be less committed to relationships and more likely to suffer emotional isolation and depression, be lonely. In stage 7, it's generativity versus stagnation. And this is during adulthood, and we continue to build our lives and focus on family and careers. And those who are successful, they contribute to the world, being active in their home and community. And those who fail to develop well at this stage will feel more unproductive and be more uninvolved in their surrounding environment and world. Stage 8 is integrity versus despair, and this is when we're getting older and it's reflecting back on life. Those who are successful during this stage will feel proud of accomplishments and look back with very few regrets and feel more satisfaction, whereas their counterparts will wind up feeling like their life has been wasted and they will experience many regrets. There's also a 9th stage, despair versus hope and faith, that Joan Erikson put out that her husband was dealing with, in those years prior to his death. And he added this as a 9th stage. She died in 1997. And in this stage, it has to do with very old age, with late 80s and beyond, Erikson said. And it's when you face a new sense of yourself over your failing bodies and your need for care. And the favorite outcome would be to achieve a new sense of wisdom and transcendence. And so this was something that, of course, he added in later on in life. So here we have hope, will, purpose, competence, fidelity, love, wisdom, and care. And I realize that there are 8 there because that 9th stage is something that is only recently, very recently, being added to textbooks and to our information about Erikson's theory. So, and today, how does this play out? Well, Erikson reminds us that we are a social creature and that cultural context also plays a part in how we develop. And here we've got that little red person down there, and how he's connected to everybody else. And relationships matter and they affect us. And then we've also got the little butterfly there. And what Erikson said was that how we approach each stage in life, we must let children develop slowly over time in order to fully become what they need to be, and that you shouldn't be rushing children or trying to push them along or hurry them along through these different stages of development. So these are things that we have to realize within our own classrooms today, that we need to allow children to develop along the way, as well as be nurturing to those relationships to help them develop to their greatest potential. And then here I've got the references of different sources used. So thank you very much.